It never begins with panic. It begins with silence. One moment, your home feels completely ordinary. The refrigerator hums in the kitchen. Your phone is charging on the counter. The television is on in the background. Dinner is almost ready. Then, without warning, everything stops. The lights disappear. The familiar sounds of your home vanish, replaced by a silence that instantly feels unnatural. At first, nobody reacts. Power outages happen all the time. You assume it'll be back in a few minutes. You walk to the window. The house across the street is dark. So is the next one. The entire neighborhood has disappeared into the darkness. Your first instinct is to check your phone. No Wi-Fi. Mobile data barely works. Thousands of people are trying to do exactly the same thing. Find out what's happening. You refresh the outage map. Nothing. You check social media. Mostly rumors. For a moment, you convince yourself it's nothing serious. It'll probably be back soon. But here's what most people don't realize. The blackout isn't the real problem. It's the countdown that begins the moment the electricity disappears. Inside your refrigerator, temperatures slowly start rising. Traffic lights stop working. Gas stations can't pump fuel without power. Some neighborhoods lose internet almost immediately. Depending on where you live, even water systems can eventually be affected. None of these changes happen dramatically. They happen quietly. And because they're quiet, most people ignore them. Instead, they make small mistakes. They open the refrigerator to check. They leave lights switched on. They drive across town looking for answers no one has. Every decision feels harmless. Together, they make the situation harder. Meanwhile, prepared families are doing something very different. They're not rushing. They're following a plan they made long before tonight. They already know where the flashlights are. They know the refrigerator stays closed. They know how much drinking water they have. Most importantly, they're making decisions based on preparation, not hope. Because the first few minutes of a blackout don't determine what happens next. The decisions you make during those minutes do. And as the first hour passes, the situation begins changing faster than most people expect. The first hour goes by. The lights are still out. Now the questions begin to change. Instead of asking, "What happened?" people start asking, "How long is this going to last?" Around the neighborhood, cars begin pulling out of driveways. Grocery store parking lots fill up. Gas stations become busier than usual. Inside supermarkets, people move quickly through the aisles. Not because they're panicking, because they're uncertain. And uncertainty changes the way people make decisions. Bottled water disappears first. Batteries, flashlights, portable phone chargers, shelf-stable food. By the time some families decide they should probably buy a few essentials, the shelves are already looking different. Back at home, another mistake becomes surprisingly common. People keep opening the refrigerator, not because they're hungry, just to check if everything still feels cold. Unfortunately, every time that door opens, the cold air escapes. It's a small habit. But small habits have consequences during a blackout. The same thing happens with phone batteries. People constantly refresh news apps, scroll through social media, call relatives, watch videos. Without realizing it, they're draining one of the few tools that keeps them connected. Prepared families think differently. They don't assume the outage will end in the next hour. They prepare as if it might not. Phone brightness goes down. Power-saving mode goes on. Flashlights replace phone lights whenever possible. The refrigerator stays closed. Simple meals replace complicated ones. These aren't dramatic survival techniques. They're ordinary decisions that reduce stress and preserve resources. And that's the biggest difference. Preparedness isn't about owning expensive gear. It's about making better decisions before small problems become bigger ones. Because by the time the sun begins to set, the power outage stops feeling like an inconvenience and starts feeling like something much more serious. As daylight begins to fade, the power outage takes on a completely different feeling. During the day, it was inconvenient. Now, it feels uncertain. Streetlights never turn on. Traffic signals remain dark. Store signs disappear from the horizon. The neighborhood you've known for years suddenly looks unfamiliar. Inside your home, every simple task becomes more complicated. Preparing dinner, finding medication, walking through a hallway. Even reading a label requires a flashlight. This is when most people realize they weren't actually prepared for the darkness. Not because they lack expensive equipment, but because they underestimated how quickly everyday life depends on electricity. Outside, neighbors gather in driveways hoping someone has answers. Some believe the power will return any minute. Others have already started worrying about tomorrow. The truth is, nobody really knows. And uncertainty has a way of making small problems feel much larger. Inside your refrigerator, another silent countdown continues. The food still looks normal. It may even feel cold, but appearances can be misleading. Food safety depends on temperature, not how it looks. Prepared families understand this. They resist the temptation to constantly check the refrigerator. They preserve the cold air for as long as possible. The same mindset applies to communication. Instead of draining their phone batteries searching for rumors, they conserve power and focus on reliable information. For many households, this is where a simple battery-powered emergency radio becomes one of the most valuable tools in the house. Not because it solves the blackout, but because it answers the questions that uncertainty creates. As the hours pass, something interesting happens. People stop asking, when will the power come back? And begin asking, what if it doesn't? That single question changes everything, because from that moment on, you're no longer waiting, you're planning. And that's where preparedness truly begins. Morning arrives, sunlight fills the house once again. For a brief second, everything feels normal. Then you instinctively reach for the light switch. Nothing. The outage is still there. Now the situation feels different, not because it's more dangerous, but because it's lasting longer than anyone expected. This is the moment when preparation becomes more important than optimism. Prepared families don't spend the morning hoping. They spend it managing resources. Phone batteries are conserved. Water is used carefully. The refrigerator stays closed unless absolutely necessary. Meals become simple and practical. Every decision is made with one question in mind. If this lasts another day, will we still be comfortable? That's the difference between reacting and preparing. Preparedness isn't about predicting the future. It's about giving yourself options when the future is uncertain. Something else begins happening across the neighborhood. People start helping one another. Someone shares extra batteries. Another neighbor lends a generator for a few hours. Someone checks on an elderly couple living alone. Preparedness has never been only about supplies. It's also about community. The better prepared your family is, the more capable you are of helping someone else. And perhaps that's one of the biggest lessons any blackout can teach. Modern life depends on countless invisible systems working together every second. Electricity, communications, fuel, water treatment, food distribution, banking, transportation. Most of us rarely think about these systems because they work so well, until one of them suddenly stops. A prolonged power outage reminds us that resilience isn't built during an emergency. It's built long before one ever begins. By now, nearly 24 hours have passed. Whether the lights return today or tomorrow, one thing is certain. You'll never look at a blackout quite the same way again. Eventually, the power comes back. Maybe later that day. Maybe sometime during the night. Or maybe after several long days of waiting. One by one, the familiar sounds return. The refrigerator starts humming again. The Wi-Fi router reconnects. The microwave clock begins flashing. Lights fill the rooms that had been dark for hours. Life slowly returns to normal, at least on the surface, because something has changed, not inside your house, inside you. After experiencing, or simply imagining, the first 24 hours without electricity, it's hard to look at everyday life the same way again. You begin noticing how many things you normally take for granted. A fully charged phone, clean running water, cold food in the refrigerator, a light switch that always works, reliable internet. Most days these things feel ordinary. During a blackout they become essential. And that's the lesson most people never think about until it's too late. Preparedness isn't about expecting disaster. It isn't about fear. And it certainly isn't about believing the worst will happen tomorrow. Preparedness is about reducing uncertainty. It's about giving yourself and your family a little more comfort, a little more confidence, and a few more options when life doesn't go according to plan. The families who stay calm during emergencies usually aren't the luckiest. They're the ones who spent a little time preparing before they ever needed to. A flashlight in the right drawer, fresh batteries, stored drinking water, a simple emergency radio, a basic first aid kit. Small decisions made long before an emergency can make an enormous difference when one finally arrives. If you'd like to explore some of the preparedness materials mentioned throughout this episode, you'll find them gathered in the description below. They're there simply as a resource to help you learn more and build your own emergency plan at your own pace. Because preparedness isn't about buying everything today. It's about making one smart decision at a time. And if you enjoy practical, documentary-style videos about emergency preparedness, self-reliance, and protecting your family during unexpected situations, consider subscribing and joining us for the next episode. Because losing electricity is often only the beginning. The next challenge usually arrives quietly, right inside your kitchen. How long could your family really eat without going to the grocery store? Most people answer that question with confidence, until they actually check. That's exactly what we'll explore in our next video. Until then, stay prepared, stay informed, and remember, the best time to prepare isn't after the emergency begins. It's while everything still seems perfectly normal.